Now, Roman, explain what your group, World to Rebuild Ukraine, is all about and how you really help farmers in Ukraine who've lost so much since the Russian invasion back in 2022.
Yeah, so before the war, we were just the company that organized all sorts of agricultural educational events for the purpose of substituting the lack of science development that is funded from the government. But when the war broke out, I took my relatives, female relatives, and their children and friends, and me and 15 women and children, we went to the farmer in Germany who gave us shelter. And this is where we simply could not stay without doing anything. And we decided to utilize our network of the contacts abroad to raise some donations and help the people who were first to meet with Russian troops coming through their villages. Of course, you've heard a lot of stories, and unfortunately, majority of them are true. That Russians were just for fun destroying the houses, their barns, killing the animals to have some food, and simply devastating where their boots have stepped. So the first idea was to help these small family farms rebuild their premises, their houses, first of all, and then agricultural premises for them to be able to feed their families. And this is how, in order to promote this program, we spent, me and my family, 100 days in the United States doing over 100 presentations about what was really going on in Ukraine and why we are fighting with Russians and why we need to be helped.
You've received quite a bit of support already here, including from Canadians and farmers and producers in Saskatchewan. Tell me a bit about that.
Sure. The first Canadian who turned out to be our ambassador is Jeffrey Kostuk from Manitoba. He is the farmer and seed breeder for hemp production. Also, this year we have been lucky to get acquainted with Kevin Elmy, the expert in cover crops. And right now we have kind of enlarged the help that we are proposing through World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine with education. So the farmers, the small farmers, they can implement this knowledge and be more resilient. And our task is to provide them with the latest, most effective technologies in production. So Kevin Elmy was one of the 7 experts who came to Ukraine and visited 27 farms, sharing his vision of how to improve the soil in Ukraine, how to increase the productivity and decrease the cost of production by implementing cover crops. So this was a very generous help because he devoted 3 weeks of his time just to teach over 1,000 of Ukrainian farmers in practice, so in their fields. And that is another way to help. We can, with limited budget, and in this case, we so far have not used a penny from the budget of World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine. We've used the money of the sponsors of the private businesses in order to collect this information and share it with the small family farmers and with the universities when it is edited. I mean, when it is prepared as the curriculum.
You know, that's wonderful. You're working with a number of Western Canadian farmers. You mentioned Manitoba. Obviously, you're working with Saskatchewan, and that's wonderful to see. Now, is the agriculture sector in Ukraine able to survive, Roma, despite the ongoing war and invasion by Russian forces?
Yes, and I must say that this is probably the number one industry that Ukraine is relying on in forming the budget. Before the war, we had iron production, which was over 50% of the income from the export. Now, number one, back then it was the second was agriculture. Now, as Russia has destroyed majority of iron processing facilities, like for example, the Mariupol factory, and as well ports that were used to export this metal and ore. Now we have agriculture as number one industry. And of course, what I've noticed at the beginning of the war, all the world was trying to help us to free the route in the Black Sea in order to be able for us to ship the commodities. And once this was freed, once the route is clear and possible to do trade, the situation improved. However, there are other difficulties that farmers in the other corners of the world might not be even aware it can exist. For example, every farmer right now relies on GPS, because even planting, even pertaining the same row spacing is necessary to use GPS and RTK. When we have air raid alerts, we are positioned somewhere in North or South America, and GPS does not work. So the farmers are using either waiting or using the old-fashioned methods with the markers in order to fit the row spacing and do the planting. Because as you know, things like planting, harvesting, and spraying cannot be postponed.
So are farmers, even though there's such a battle going on in your country right now, are they still able to help provide food for some of the locals, for Ukrainians?
Of course, we, according to the index of protein that is produced in Ukraine, we are capable to feed over 600 million people. And as you know, the population of Ukraine now is about 35, 38. So if with some diet, we can fit in the whole North America to feed. The problem was of actually at the beginning of the war, because the logistical chains were broken. Now, as we've adjusted, as we've got used to the realities like air raid alerts and the threats from the sky, farmers keep doing what they do. But statistically, 25% of Ukrainian land is mined. So it is not capable for, and we had, before the war, including Crimea, we had 72 million acres of arable land. Minus 25%.
Roman, that's incredible. Now, you're actually planning a trip to Western Canada in October. What's the purpose of your visit?
The same actually as was the purpose of Kevin's arrival to Ukraine, to teach the Ukrainian farmers, and in this case, those who are a little bit bigger than 500 hectares who can cross the border, to show them how these technologies that they've heard from Kevin in theory, how they work in practice in Canada. And your conditions are very similar to Ukrainian. It's just that we envy you to have such frosty winters and some snow. But other than that, you are the same north latitude as we are, the same crops, and a lot of similarities. That's why what you do successfully in Canada, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba can be adjusted and implemented in Ukraine as well. And our purpose is to show it's better to see once than to hear 7 times.
Roman Grinishin, founder of the World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for the support, and you are welcome to come over to Ukraine anytime.